Welcome, curious minds. Today, the story is at the peak of curiosity. What if the gods of ancient Egypt weren't gods at all? What if the sky chariots of the Mahabharata were not myth, but memory? And what if, long before telescopes or satellites, ancient humans looked to the stars not with wonder, but with familiarity? Across the ruins of Sumer, the tombs of Egypt, the deserts of Peru, and the legends of forgotten tribes, there lies a secret, a hidden history that speaks of visitors. Not angels, not demons, but something else. This is the story of those whispers buried in stone, of the patterns too precise to ignore, of the watchers who may have walked beside us since the beginning. Welcome to The Watchers, a hidden history of alien contact. If you've ever looked at the stars and wondered, have we always been alone? Then this series is for you. Subscribe to join the investigation. Comment below with what ancient mystery fascinates you most. Because the more we explore, the less impossible the truth becomes. The desert winds howled across the flat sands of southern Iraq, carrying secrets buried for 5,000 years. Dr. Elia Ravis stood alone beside a ruined ziggurat under a reddening sky, notebook in one hand, trowel in the other. Her fingers trembled not from the heat, but from the symbol she had just unearthed. It was a relief, carved into a stone older than any known script. The image showed a being with elongated limbs and almond-shaped eyes, descending from what appeared to be a winged disc, surrounded by fire. Below it knelt figures of humans, arms raised in worship. She had seen similar depictions before at different excavation sites, across different cultures spanning millennia. But this one was different. It was older, and it had no stylistic resemblance to Sumerian art. She scribbled into her notebook, Ziggurat Layer 4, symbolic carving non-anthropomorphic entity in arrival posture. Possible pre-Sumerian origin, not human? Her satellite phone buzzed. A coded message from her contact in Cairo. We found it. The coordinates match your tablet fragment. Tell no one. Aliyah closed her notebook. A new journey was beginning, one that would take her across continents, through forbidden archives, ancient myths, and unexplainable evidence. And at its core, a question humanity had asked since its beginning. Have we always been alone? The first clues, Sumer, 3800 BCE, the first recorded civilization, the Sumerians, didn't claim to invent writing, agriculture, or law. They said they were taught these things by the Anunnaki. Ancient cuneiform tablets describe the Anunnaki as those who came from the heavens to the earth. They supposedly descended from the sky and walked among humans, instructing kings, creating mankind, and establishing cities. One passage from the Sumerian text Enuma Elish reads, "They descended in chariots of fire, and light was around them. Their words were not understood, but they shaped the lands and taught us how to survive the sky flood." Archaeologists dismissed these as myth, but Aliyah had stood before a statue in Eridu, a being with inhuman proportions, eyes too large, limbs too thin, and wondered, were these myths or memories? Later Sumerian tablets even describe a sky gate in the city of Sippar, a structure made of a material stronger than stone, which glowed under starlight and hummed when spoken to. It was supposedly destroyed in a flood. But Aliyah had obtained a ceramic shard from Sippar. On it was a map not of Mesopotamia, but of star constellations as seen from Earth over 6,000 years ago. The secret above Abydos, Egypt, 1250 BCE. Aliyah traveled next to Egypt. In a temple at Abydos, within a chamber few were allowed to see, she examined strange glyphs found above the architraves. The carvings were unmistakable in shape. What appeared to be a helicopter, a submarine, and something resembling a futuristic aircraft. Most Egyptologists chalk them up to palimpsest, where hieroglyphs from different reigns overlapped due to erosion. But Aliyah had another theory. What if these weren't carvings made by accident, but by those who saw something. Egyptian mythology is rife with mentions of the sky gods Ra, who traveled across the heavens in a solar bark; Thoth, who measured the stars and taught man language; Isis, who descended and resurrected the dead with knowledge from the sky realm. One lesser-known text, the Lamentations of Thutmose, mentions a metal bird that came from the heavens, darkening the sun and shaking the earth. It landed with fire and smoke. From it came the Watchers tall, wide-eyed, wrapped in silver. They spoke in light and healed the wounded. No mainstream textbook includes that passage. Aliyah had found it in a restricted papyrus collection in Vienna, labeled Mythological Fragment, unverified. The Pillars of Knowledge, India, 2000 BCE, and before. From Egypt, her trail led to India, where the Vedas spoke of the Vimanas, flying chariots used by gods to wage wars in the sky. Descriptions from the Mahabharata tell of weapons that could level cities, turn night into day, and burn the skin of warriors with invisible fire. Many believe this to be poetic metaphor. But then, what about the site in Mohenjo-Daro, where skeletal remains show signs of sudden, intense heat exposure? Radiation levels at parts of the site are inexplicably high, and some vitrified stone formations hint at an unknown energy source. In one temple archive, Aliyah found an old copper plate showing a winged being seated in a dome-shaped craft above a burning city. Beneath it, a line of Sanskrit. He came to teach, but they did not listen, so he left fire. Was it myth, vision, or memory? The plate was dated to 2100 BCE. The Watchers in the Sky, Dogon tribe, Mali. From Asia, Aliyah followed the trail to Africa again, this time to Mali, where the Dogon tribe had long spoken of their creators from the Sirius star system. Long before telescopes, the Dogon described Sirius not as a single star, but a binary system, including a dwarf companion star invisible to the naked eye, Sirius B. Modern science only confirmed this in 1970. How did a remote tribe know of a celestial body with no visibility from Earth? Aliyah sat with a Dogon elder who showed her the Namo scroll, a sacred artifact wrapped in animal skin. It depicted fish-like beings descending from the sky in an arc that made the earth tremble. They gave us language, fire, and sky maps, the elder said. Then they returned to their water stars. Some said the Namo were amphibious beings who arrived from the stars and lived in lakes. In myth? Perhaps. But in the scroll's drawing, the arc looked eerily like a metallic capsule with jets at the base. Patterns across the world. Coincidence or code? Aliyah began to notice patterns. Ancient cave paintings in Italy and Australia showed figures in helmets and suits, surrounded by circular shapes with beams of light. The Nazca lines in Peru, only fully visible from above, resembled runways or landing signals. The Olmecs carved massive heads with facial features resembling neither native tribes nor surrounding cultures. In Bolivia, Pumapunku's stone blocks were cut with such precision, even modern tools would struggle to replicate them. Across continents, across time, the same archetypes repeated. Sky gods arriving in fire, knowledge delivered from above, sudden leaps in technology and social order, mysterious disappearances or destructions afterward. Were these fragments of fiction or pieces of a forgotten truth? Before she left Cairo, Aliyah met a retired military archaeologist named Hassan Shawkri, who slid her a USB drive and said only, "What's buried in the sand is not always meant to stay buried." Inside the drive was a PDF titled Operation Seraphim Declassified Fragments. The document included satellite scans, internal memos, and field photographs of an unmapped desert structure, hundreds of meters wide, buried beneath the Egyptian-Libyan border. One image showed something unmistakable, a metallic structure shaped like a spiral disc buried beneath centuries of rock and sand. It matched a drawing Aliyah had seen months ago on a Sumerian tablet. As the sun dipped behind the desert hills, Elia looked toward the horizon. She had unearthed stories too strange for scholars and too consistent to ignore. Some called them gods, others angels. A few whispered the forbidden word, aliens. But what if they were none of those? What if they were simply ... the first visitors? And what if they had never truly left? Elia Ravis stared at the satellite image again. It showed something she wasn't supposed to see. A spiral-shaped metallic structure, buried under kilometers of sand, its geometry too perfect to be natural, its materials completely alien to known architecture. The coordinates placed it within a remote, no-man's land on the Egyptian-Libyan border, where no official excavations were allowed. The image was labeled Operation Seraphim, Restricted Tier 3. Below it was a date, 1961, and a redacted name, Recovered Fragments Moved to Vault 7, Archive Ecclesia. Archive Ecclesia. She had heard that phrase once before from a Vatican archaeologist who had died in a car crash 3 days after meeting her. Elia flew to Rome under a research pretext, using forged credentials provided by her secret contact, Karan. Posing as a linguistics consultant, she infiltrated the Vatican Apostolic Archive, the largest private library on Earth, containing over 53 miles of shelving and texts dating back 12 centuries. She wasn't there for theology. She was looking for a book whispered about in forbidden academic circles, Liber Stellae, the Book of the Star. According to legend, it was written by a 15th century monk who had discovered a metallic artifact buried beneath the ruins of Baalbek in Lebanon. The artifact, described as swinging in silence, emitted pulses when the stars were right. The monk claimed it contained knowledge not of Earth, including sketches of beings with long limbs, oval eyes, and celestial charts identical to modern star maps. The book was banned by the Church, deemed heretical and blasphemous. But if it existed, it could be the key to unlocking the greatest mystery in human history. Deep beneath the Vatican, Elia met Father Amari, an elderly archivist with shaking hands and hollow eyes. He didn't ask for credentials. He only said, "You're not the first to come looking, but you may be the last." He led her down 7 locked corridors, each colder than the last. Inside a chamber protected by iron grates and lead-lined walls, he pulled a cloth-bound manuscript from a sealed box. It was Liber Stellae. Its pages were made of treated animal skin, etched with metallic ink that shimmered under candlelight. The first page read, "To those who remember the sky before memory, the stars were not far, and the watchers walked beside us." One chapter detailed the arrival of lights in 1471 over a monastery in northern Italy. The monks described them as wheels of fire, which made no sound yet spoke in their minds. The lights hovered above the chapel for 3 nights. But what chilled Elia most was a drawing in the final chapter. A familiar shape, the same spiral disc from the satellite photo. Beneath it, Latin text. They buried it where man cannot find. But the stars remember. Elia began to realize this wasn't just a hunt through the past. There were patterns, modern ones, that echoed ancient stories. 1952, Washington, D.C. Multiple unidentified objects seen flying over the Capitol. Official explanation: temperature inversion. 1976, Tehran. Iranian pilots chased glowing objects. Their electronic systems failed mid-air. 2004, USS Nimitz encounter. U.S. Navy pilots recorded a tic-tac shaped craft defying the laws of physics. The footage was declassified in 2020. These were not just dots on a map. They were the same shapes, the same maneuvers, the same silent watchers described by the Dogon, the Egyptians, the Sumerians. Time seemed irrelevant to them, or perhaps time was their instrument. The last page of Liber Stellae was blank until Elia tilted it under a warm lamp. The ink revealed a final message: written in code. When she deciphered it, her breath stopped. They return where the sky is oldest, where stone meets fire and silence sings. There lies the gate. Her mind raced. Where the sky is oldest. She thought of the star maps in the Dagon shrine, of Sirius. But where stone meets fire? Suddenly, she knew. Göbekli Tepe. Turkey. The oldest known temple on Earth. And it wasn't built by hunter-gatherers. Not if the carvings were real. Alaya's journey had just begun. She had decoded myths, broken into secrets, touched what had been buried. But now, she wasn't just chasing a theory. She was chasing a gate and maybe, just maybe, the ones who built it. To find the oldest truth, go to the place man buried before he learned to write. The words from the last page of Liber Stellae rang in Alaya's ears as she stepped off the small plain at Şanlıurfa, Turkey. Just outside this quiet town rested one of archaeology's greatest anomalies, Göbekli Tepe, a site so old that it shattered the timeline of civilization. Dating back over 11,000 years, long before the invention of agriculture or the wheel, this temple complex had been purposefully buried as if to protect or conceal something. For years, mainstream archaeologists labeled it a religious center built by primitive hunter-gatherers. But Aliyah had a growing suspicion, one supported by star maps, ancient symbols, and a warning found in a 500-year-old forbidden manuscript. There was something beneath it, something the builders, or their watchers, didn't want the future to find, the carvings that shouldn't exist. Aliyah was greeted at the site by a former contact, Dr. Yusuf Karaman, a Turkish archaeologist quietly open to unorthodox theories. "These stones don't belong to the people we think built them," he whispered, guiding her past tourists. "And they don't worship animals. They document something not from here." Yusuf led her to Enclosure D, the most intact of Göbekli Tepe's rings. Two massive T-shaped pillars stood at its center, towering over the smaller ones, like ancient sentinels. But what captured Aliyah's attention was the relief carving on the left pillar, a humanoid figure without a face, arms crossed over its chest, with long fingers and elongated limbs. Surrounding it were circles, stars, and an unmistakable shape. A spiral disc, the same spiral she had seen in Vatican records. And the satellite images. Yusuf handed her a black and white photo. "This was taken before we removed the sediment. Look here beneath the pillar's base. A triangle, inscribed with 3 smaller circles. We thought it was symbolic, until we found it matched the star alignment of Sirius, Betelgeuse, and Procyon, as they were 12,000 years ago." Aliyah's heart pounded. Was this a map? Or a key? Later that evening, under the cover of darkness, Yusuf led her to a cordoned-off excavation pit covered by canvas tarps. "This isn't public. We found it 3 weeks ago." "What is it?" Aliyah asked. "A chamber, buried beneath the central ring. We've only seen part of the roof." Together, they descended into the pit, carefully stepping past ancient stone tools and scattered debris. At the base, covered in dust and packed sediment, was a circular stone door, unlike anything found at Göbekli Tepe. Its edges were laser smooth, impossibly precise for Neolithic builders. Along its rim were glyphs, not cuneiform, not hieroglyphs, but something wholly unfamiliar. Yet Aliyah recognized one mark from the Liber Stellae, a spiral inside a triangle. They began the painstaking process of clearing the debris. As the stone's surface was revealed in full, Yusuf muttered, "It's not just a door, it's a seal." They didn't have time for official channels. That night, with battery-powered equipment, they lifted the stone slab just enough to lower a drone camera inside. The feed flickered. Then, clarity, a circular chamber, roughly 5 meters across. In the center was a pedestal, upon which sat a black object, smooth and gleaming, like obsidian, but pulsing faintly with blue light. Around the walls were engravings, More humanoid figures, many with elongated heads, multiple fingers, and eyes shaped like almonds. Some raised their hands toward the sky. Others held objects resembling tools or devices. But what made both Elia and Yusuf freeze was a panel at the far side. A star field, complete with accurate representations of the Orion constellation, Sirius, and a cluster of smaller dots encircling a massive central one. Elia counted them. 12 small dots, one massive one. It wasn't just a star map. It was a solar system. For a moment, there was only silence. Then the drone feed picked up something strange. A low hum, rhythmic, pulsing. It seemed to come from the black object, a frequency inaudible to the human ear, but captured by the mic. Yusuf checked the readings. That object, it's emitting low-level electromagnetic pulses. You're saying it's powered? No, he said, voice trembling. I'm saying it's active. The implications hit them both. This artifact had been buried for over 11,000 years. If it was still transmitting, who or what was listening? Elia returned to her hotel in a daze. She began correlating what they had seen with other known anomalies. The Dugon tribe's knowledge of Sirius B, an invisible white dwarf only discovered with modern telescopes. The Tassili cave paintings in Algeria, 8,000-year-old depictions of beings in helmets with antennae. The Nazca lines of Peru, massive geoglyphs only visible from the sky with perfect geometric alignment. The Laladov plate in Nepal, a stone disc showing a spiral and a humanoid with large oval eyes, dated to 10,000 BCE. The spiral, the figures, the stars. It wasn't just coincidence. It was a message spread across civilizations, cultures, and centuries, using symbols, maps, and monuments. And the buried chamber at Göbekli Tepe was the first direct link. Just as she was compiling her findings to send to her anonymous source in Prague, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Nisratis, stop digging. You're trespassing in territories that don't belong to you. The voice was synthetic, emotionless. Return home. Destroy your footage, or you won't see part 4. The veil was lifting. The map was real. The chamber was real. The pulse was real. And someone, somewhere, didn't want the past uncovered. But Elia was no longer chasing shadows. She was in it now. And the watchers were watching back. Icy winds tore across the barren landscape of the Svalbard archipelago. Elia pulled her parka tighter as she stepped off the propeller plane. The northern lights shimmered faintly on the horizon, but her eyes were fixed on something much older than the frozen earth or the sky. Above, a sealed black vault set deep into the mountainside. The world knew this place as the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, a backup vault for Earth's biodiversity, a Noah's Ark of crops sealed in the permafrost to outlast doomsday. But Elia wasn't here for seeds. She was here because of a message hidden in a decades-old CIA-filled journal that had mysteriously landed on her encrypted server just days ago. The file was labeled Project Black Eden -1972. The journal belonged to a former U.S. operative, Major Michael Lang, stationed in Oslo during the Cold War. In 1971, he claimed to have intercepted a Soviet excavation mission in the Arctic Circle 1 that never made headlines. Lang's notes were fragmented, often redacted, but certain entries stood out. March 5, 1972. The Russians didn't come for oil or military posts. They came for what they called Zvezdnaya Semena, star seeds, claimed it was older than the glaciers. March 13th. We found the artifact. It wasn't made of any known alloy. It hummed, pulsed like it was breathing. The locals called it the breath of the North Star. They said their ancestors buried it after the sky gods left. March 17th. I tried to smuggle the artifact out. Failed. They took it. Buried it again deep with a seed vault cover story. The final note sent chills down Elia's spine. They say it's not dead, just waiting. With the help of a sympathetic archivist, Elia was allowed limited access to the official seed vault. She passed through layers of biometric security, each door heavier than the last. The temperature dropped rapidly down to minus 18 degrees Celsius, optimal for preserving life and secrets. The actual vault was a marvel of steel and stone, its shelves lined with boxes containing the world's agricultural legacy. But she wasn't here for rice or wheat. She followed the coordinates embedded in the Black Eden file. They led to a sealed steel door deeper underground, outside the public layout. There were no markings, just a keypad and a biometric scanner, with a strange symbol scratched into the wall nearby. A triangle encasing a spiral dot again. The symbol from Gozitli Tepe, the one from Liber Stellae, the Watcher's Mark. Elia pulled out a modified retinal scanner given to her by the same Praga contact. It pulsed softly, hacking the override. The door hissed open. Cold air swept past her, biting her face. Inside was a small room, no larger than a crypt, dimly lit by motion sensors. The air was still, heavy, humming. At the center stood a pedestal, and on it a black oval-shaped object, smooth, seamless, pulsing faintly with bluish light, just like the one beneath Göbekli Tepe. This one, however, was different. It floated, no wires, no base, just levitating an inch off the pedestal. On the wall behind it, carved into the concrete, were ancient glyphs. Not Norse, not Egyptian, something older. Elia's heart thudded. She was staring at an object that defied physics. In a vault built for preserving human life, something non-human had been hidden. The seed that wasn't. Inside a locked case near the object, she found a small capsule, labeled in faded Cold War font. Specimen M17, Sirius I V seed. It was no seed. Inside was a metallic shard, irregularly shaped, etched with microscopic lines, like circuitry. Or language. She scanned it. The signal frequency matched the low EM pulse from Göbekli Tepe's chamber. These weren't just artifacts. They were connected, and still communicating. A cosmic trail of seeds. Elia sat down, stunned, connecting the dots. What if seeds weren't just biological? What if the so-called star seeds were technological beacons, planted across the earth in ancient times, awakening only when civilization reached a certain level of development? What if these were data caches, left behind by intelligences far beyond human comprehension? Göbekli Tepe, Svalbard, and likely many more. Was this what Liber Stellae meant by, "The veil shall crack when the seeds hum in unison"? Suddenly, a sharp metallic clang echoed through the chamber. She wasn't alone. A figure emerged from the doorway, tall, suited in Arctic black, face obscured by thermal goggles and a voice modulator. "Dr. Ravis, you've gone too far." Elia's hand went for her satchel. "Do you even know what that is?" she asked, nodding toward the floating artifact. The figure stepped forward. "We do, and we've kept it quiet for 70 years. Then, something unexpected. The artifact pulsed bright blue, rising another inch. A low-frequency hum filled the room, then a whisper. Not through air, but in Elia's mind. "She is the one. Awaken the circle." The figure froze, visibly shaken. "You heard that too?" she whispered. "Yes," the agent said. "And now, everything changes. What lies inside the other seed vaults? How many artifacts are there, still buried, still waiting? And who or what programmed them to awaken now?" The stone corridors beneath Vatican City were silent, save for the echo of Elia's footsteps. Deep below the public libraries and museums, past sealed chambers and restricted doorways, lay a place few had ever seen, the Archivum Secretum Apostolicum Vaticanum, the Vatican Secret Archives. It was here that centuries of forbidden knowledge had been buried, away from public eyes. And within these walls, guarded by codes, oaths, and silence, existed a single manuscript, Codex Occulta Lux, the Book of the Hidden Light, the journal of a 15th century Carthusian monk named Brother Andrenius, who claimed to have witnessed a descent of fire from the stars. A text suppressed for 500 years until now. Elias stood before the locked glass vault that housed the codex. Thanks to a favor from a rebellious young cardinal sympathetic to her research, she'd been granted 1 hour with it. 1 hour to glimpse a truth buried for centuries. As she opened the book, the parchment crackled with age. The ink, though faded, was preserved in sharp Gothic script. The first passage struck like a thunderclap. In the 7th hour of the 8th day of Lent, the firmament opened. Lights not of candle nor sun did descend, soundless and bright as the souls of saints. He spoke of beings in white, whose heads shone like mirrors, whose limbs were long and silent, whose presence bent the trees and calmed the birds. He called them Custodes Caeli, guardians of the sky. But this wasn't just a vision. According to Andrenius, they left something behind, a stone of black glass that pulsed when held near flame. The same description as the artifact beneath Göbekli Tepe and the floating oval in Svalbard. He had buried it, fearful of the church's wrath. But in the final passage, he confessed, "I gave it to the librarians of the light. They said the stone was not of sin, but of knowledge. That a day would come when the stars would speak again, and the veil would fall." Elias searched the archives for any mention of these so-called librarians. In a side drawer, tucked within an unrelated Renaissance theology folder, she found a sigil, a spiral within a triangle. Again, below it, a Latin phrase, Veritas Caeli Vincit. The truth of the sky prevails. The librarians were real. And according to a hidden memo from Pope Leo, the 10th in 1515, they were an underground order within the church, originally formed not to suppress alien contact, but to protect humanity from the psychological impact of it. One letter described their mission. The truth is too vast for the mortal soul. The stars hold watchers, and the watchers hold memories. To speak the full truth without guidance is to invite madness. They believed the artifacts scattered across Earth were not only messages, but triggers. And if too many were activated, something would come. Tucked in the back of the codex was a hand-drawn star map, with earthly coordinates sketched around a depiction of the Orion constellation. Elia matched the numbers. 3 stood out, coordinates in Peru, close to the Nazca lines, a site in India, near the Ellora caves, and 1 marked only with a symbol, with no numbers, just a drawing of the moon. Was there something on the moon? Before she could investigate further, she heard footsteps. The cardinal re-entered, flanked by 2 Vatican guards. "You have to leave," he said, urgency in his voice. "They know you're here. Not we, but them." "Who?" Elia asked. He leaned close, whispering, "The ones who've infiltrated every state, every agency, even us." He handed her a final envelope. "The next piece is in Peru, but hurry, they are waking up." Back in her hotel that night, Elia watched global headlines scroll past her tablet screen. Sudden magnetic surge detected in southern Peru. Pilots report bizarre light formations over Nazca region. Satellite glitch reveals unmapped structure beneath Andes. The seeds were awakening. The librarians had tried to warn us. And now someone or something was responding. The watchers had not only been seen, they had been recorded, cataloged, and hidden. Not by accident, not by design. But the veil was beginning to crack. The sun beat down upon the vast ochre desert of southern Peru, casting long shadows across the ancient Nazca lines, those enigmatic geoglyphs etched into the earth centuries ago. From the air, they resembled hummingbirds, monkeys, and spiders. But one particular figure haunted Elia's mind. A humanoid with oversized eyes and elongated limbs, etched beside a spiral. The same spiral, always the spiral. Aliyah stood atop a rusting observation tower with her guide, Alejandro Mata, a local archaeologist and former military surveyor. He glanced at her GPS device and raised a brow. "You're not the first to ask about this place," he said. In 1997, a satellite anomaly revealed a structure beneath these sands. Not a ruin, a perfect octagon. We weren't allowed to excavate. "Who stopped it?" Aliyah asked. Alejandro's eyes narrowed. A UN scientific delegation showed up, but locals say it was Americans. They sealed it off, called it seismic instability. But we heard digging for weeks. The coordinates from the Vatican Codex pointed directly to that sealed site. They called it Templo de la Sombra, the Shadow Temple. As night fell and the desert cooled, Alejandro led Aliyah to the ruins by flashlight. They passed faded warning signs, Peligro Instabilidad Estructural, using ground-penetrating radar, and Aliyah's new frequency tracker, modified to detect electromagnetic resonance from the Svalbard artifact. They located a hatch beneath a loose stone slab. It wasn't Inca, it was metal. Aliyah ran her scanner. The Ing pulse matched the same pattern from Göbekli Tepe and Svalbard. Something was down there. With a groan of rusted hinges and sand-stiff chains, the hatch opened. A metallic staircase spiraled downward into the earth. At the base, they entered a wide circular chamber. Though pitch black, the moment they stepped inside, lights flickered on automatically. Soft, blue-white lights embedded in the walls. Alejandro froze. No power lines. No batteries. What is this? Along the walls, carvings glowed faintly. Constellations, galaxies, spiral motifs. In the center stood another artifact, a black stone monolith, unlike any she'd seen before. But this one had something new. A groove, shaped perfectly to hold the metallic shard Aliyah had taken from Svalbard. Her hand trembled as she slid it in. The chamber responded instantly. The carvings shifted, rearranging. Lights pulsed. And then, a hologram of sorts, not light, but an image made of vibration and shadow, rose from the monolith. It depicted Earth, surrounded by dozens of other orbs. Some ringed, some dark, all connected by thin threads of light. At the top, a symbol. Not a name, not a word, but a triangle and spiral, surrounded by 7 stars. Alejandro stepped back, awestruck. They weren't just visiting, he whispered. They were mapping us. The image zoomed in, now showing specific points on Earth, each marked with a pulsing dot. Göbekli, Tepe, Svalbard, Vatican, Nazca, India, Antarctica, and one in deep space, beyond the moon, slowly blinking. The system was live. The seeds weren't just memories. They were transmitters, listening, communicating, waking up. Aliyah was shaking. "It's a global network," she murmured. "They left it here, waiting for us to become advanced enough to find it." Suddenly, the chamber began to vibrate, not violently, but rhythmically. A low, resonant hum filled the space. The monolith pulsed, and a final message displayed in symbols across the walls. Initiation threshold approaching. Veil status thinning. Observer protocol. Engage phase 2. Back on the surface, as Aliyah processed the footage, she received an encrypted transmission from the Cardinal in Rome. "Aliyah, you triggered it. We're seeing resonance anomalies globally. Someone else activated a node in India. You're not the only one." He sent her an image. A man in a military uniform standing near an Ellora cave glyph, the same triangle spiral symbol glowing behind him. Aliyah's breath caught. He's not just finding them, he's activating them. And he wasn't alone. In her hotel that night, Aliyah pored over a final section of Codex Occulta Lux, translated via "When 6 keys sing together, the seventh shall break the sky. The watchers shall not return as gods nor monsters, but as judges of inheritance. Mankind must remember or be remembered. What did it mean? Was this a countdown? A test? Were the artifacts here to elevate us, or to determine if we were worthy of further contact? And more pressingly, what happened after the sixth was activated? From the deserts of Peru to the silent temples of forgotten ages, the story is no longer just about ancient contact. It's about an ancient plan, and the moment of decision is approaching. Ellora, Maharashtra, India. The temple caves carved straight into basalt rock stood like frozen thunder, ancient, solemn, and oddly precise. While most saw them as architectural wonders of medieval Hinduism, Elia now saw them as machines carved in stone, chambers designed not only for prayer, but for activation. She stood before the Kailasa temple, flanked by massive elephant carvings, trying to reconcile what she knew. These caves were dug downward, not built upward, chiseled with impossible symmetry and unknown precision over 1,200 years ago. But no records existed on how they'd done it. The GPS led her not to the temple's inner sanctum, but to Cave 12, known as Tin Tao, an ancient Buddhist cave. And the device she carried? The Vatican's resonance tracker. It was already reacting. As she entered the quiet stone chamber, she felt it. The low hum. A same subsonic vibration from Nazca, from Svalbard, but this time it felt alive. In the central hall stood a glowing disc embedded in the wall, flat, almost like obsidian, but lined with moving glyphs and symbols unknown to any language group. But it had already been activated. A thin cable ran from the disc across the floor, discreetly hidden under a scatter of sand and dust. She followed it, until she found it connected to a small device, military grade. And beside it, a man in camouflage. Aliyah stepped back as he turned. His eyes, piercing and cold, recognized her instantly. "You're late," he said, "but not too late. You're the one from the photo. The Cardinal's image." He nodded. "Major Lucien Vallon. I work for a division that doesn't officially exist." He stood and walked toward her, surprisingly calm. "We call it the Celestial Integration Protocol Office, SIPO for short, formed after Roswell, consolidated after Kecksburg. We track these nodes. We don't open them, unless necessary." "And you activated one," Elia accused. "Because we had no choice," he said. "The signal's already being broadcast. Someone else triggered the fifth node from Antarctica. It's not just about discovery anymore." He held out a small metallic tablet, showing a map. All 6 active nodes were pulsing. A 7th, still dim, lay in deep space, moving toward Earth. Lucien led her to the disk. It wasn't just a transmitter. It was a memory reader. When they stood before it, their brainwaves altered, just slightly. And then the wall shimmered, revealing a holographic projection of ancient India, but not as it is taught in history. Aliyah watched in stunned silence as images played. Flying chariots glowing with blue flames, vimanas hovering over cities that matched no known map. Tall beings with elongated skulls teaching geometry to groups of humans. A massive explosion in the desert, an apparent energy weapon, leaving glassed sand behind. Lucia narrated, "This isn't myth. It's encoded recall. Whoever these watchers were, they imprinted their actions in the planetary grid. The nodes are unlocking the record." Aliyah's voice trembled. "Then what's coming from space?" Lucien pointed to the dim 7th signal. "Either confirmation of readiness or judgment." Back in her hotel that night, Elia received a new encrypted file from the Vatican Cardinal. It contained a lost scroll from the Dead Sea, dated 200 BCE, never released to the public. In it, a prophet named Ezrael wrote, "And the 6th trumpet shall sound, and the earth shall awaken its stones. Then shall the 7 watchers descend, not to conquer, but to weigh. Those who remember shall ascend in wisdom. Those who forget shall fall with the dust. Were we being tested, or simply observed? And was humanity even ready for contact? That same night, astronomers from Chile's Atacama Desert Observatory published an emergency bulletin. Unidentified celestial object entering the solar system from beyond Kuiper Belt, decelerating, not following Newtonian motion. And for the first time, global media covered the story without dismissing it. Is this an asteroid or a craft? The seventh signal? A new era begins? SETIA confirms. Object transmitting structured code. Lucian texted Aaliyah one word. They're coming. The sixth key has been activated. The memory of Earth's hidden history is unlocking like a puzzle long buried. The watchers are no longer silent, and the seventh signal grows brighter. The world was no longer asleep. Within hours of the Atacama Bulletin, the global news cycle went into overdrive. Social media spiraled, conspiracy channels exploded, and for the first time in decades, governments couldn't dismiss it. Because it was real. A massive object, nearly 2 kilometers long, was entering Earth's orbital influence and slowing down. But it wasn't shaped like a rock. It was hexagonal, black as night, and trailed no debris. It emitted no heat. Yet it was broadcasting radio pulses in a mathematically precise pattern, identical to the resonance frequencies recorded at Göbekli Tepe, Nazca, Svalbard, Ellora, and more. It was, without question, the seventh seed. A secret summit was convened in Geneva. Officials from NATO, the Vatican, the UN, Russia, China, India, and the US sat in a sealed room. Aaliyah was brought in under Vatican sponsorship. Major Lucian Vallon was already there, now wearing a jet black pin, a spiral inside a triangle, the symbol of the Celestial Integration Protocol Office. It's not a threat, he said to the crowd. It's an arrival, a scheduled one. Gasps echoed. Some shouted. Aaliyah stood and spoke clearly. The 6 Earth nodes were keys that released memory, evidence, contact points. This seventh object is the response. She held up the Codex Occulta Lux, flipped to a page showing the prophecy. When 6 keys sing together, the seventh shall break the sky. The Vatican representative added softly, and initiate the weighing of inheritance. NASA and ESA telescopes tracked the object as it entered geostationary orbit above the Indian Ocean. It pulsed light patterns, not randomly, but in sequences that mirrored DNA codes, specifically human DNA. More bizarre, each day it hovered, one ancient node on Earth lit up again, transmitting in sync. It was like they were singing in chorus. The object wasn't just observing Earth, it was interfacing with it. That night, millions of people across the globe experienced the same thing. A vivid, identical dream. A black sky full of stars. A silent figure of light standing beneath a massive stone arch. A voice, not heard but felt, saying only, "Remember." Social media platforms were flooded. Scientists dismissed it as mass hysteria, but the EEG data said otherwise. People's brainwaves aligned globally, a phenomenon never before recorded. Major Lucian called it the threshold pulse. They're sensing with our consciousness, he told Aaliyah. This isn't communication, it's calibration. Then came the anomaly. The dormant Antarctica node, long considered silent, began transmitting, but not in the same pattern. Its pulse was erratic, angry. It broadcasted discordant tones and twisted versions of the glyphs seen before. Lucian's face went pale. That node wasn't activated by us, someone else. Used it as a weapon. To do what? Aaliyah asked. To spoof the signal, to mimic the watchers, or maybe ... to block them. An urgent feed came in. The seventh object had stopped responding. The humming ceased. The sky returned to silence. The orbiting object dimmed. Its signals stopped mid-pattern. Aaliyah's resonance tracker blinked red. It was as if the arrival had been aborted. Something or someone had interfered. Lucien slammed his fist on the table. We were on the threshold. And now, because of that rogue interference, they're re-evaluating us, Elia whispered. The judgment wasn't just coming. It had already begun. One last pulse came from the object before it fell silent completely. All 7 nodes flared once and then shut down simultaneously. The world seismographs picked up the tremor. Every satellite caught it. One sentence, encoded, simple, one species. 2 paths, one chosen, and then nothing. The object remained in orbit, dark and quiet, like a judge who delivered a sentence, but would not reveal what it meant. The arrival came, but not as expected. Now Earth stands at a crossroads, unsure whether the signal was an invitation, a test, or a warning. The watchers are watching no more. Now they're waiting. Location: Aries Vallis Mars Year. Classified. Mission: Red Echo 3. Beneath a pale orange sky and wind-carved valleys, a rover rolled over ancient rock. Not NASA's, not ESA's. This was a private multinational operation funded through shell corporations and defense contracts. A hidden excavation had been ongoing for 7 years, and 3 weeks ago, they found it. A buried structure beneath the regolith, hexagonal and mirror black, made from a material unknown to science. The moment it was uncovered, it sent out a single pulse, not to Earth, but to the object now orbiting above it. The 7th seed didn't come to Earth by chance. It had come in response to Mars. Alea was brought in by Lucien, flown in secret aboard a high-orbit shuttle, and inserted into the Martian facility through one of the oldest known Russian pods, long presumed decommissioned. She stared at the Martian glyphs on the walls of the underground chamber. They were identical to the ones she'd seen at Goziti Tepe, Alora, and even in the Vatican's Codex Lux. "This shouldn't be here," she whispered. "This is pre-human." Lucien nodded grimly. "We believe Mars was once a seed world like Earth, but something happened. It failed. Or was judged," Elia said. The central structure was a black monolith with 6 protrusions, just like the Earth nodes. In the middle, however, was a broken core, cracked long ago by some internal force. Using the Vatican's resonance tracker, they activated a limited projection from the structure. What they saw next changed everything. A holographic record appeared. A world of green oceans and breathable skies, Mars, long ago. A humanoid civilization. Tall, pale beings with extended craniums, genetically distinct from humans, but similar. Contact with Earth through biobeacons, seeding programs. And then, a rebellion. A rogue faction of Martians broke the protocol. They weaponized the node system. They mimicked the Watchers. They tricked Earth into worshipping false signals. False gods, Elia breathed. The corrupted myths. Set Enlil, even the destructive faces of Shiva. They weren't all from the same source. Some were Watchers. Some were Martian deceivers, Lucien finished. The hologram ended with a planetary catastrophe. Mars' atmosphere stripped, its oceans boiled, its seed system destroyed. The message closed with a glyph that translated as, "We are not ready. We pretended to be. We watched the Watchers and tried to become them." The 7th object in Earth's orbit had responded not to Earth's awakening, but to the Martian node's betrayal reawakening. Earth's mirror fate? Lucien pulled up classified reports. Signs of Martian tech buried in Earth's deepest pyramids. Under Angkor Wat, beneath the ocean floor off Yanaguni. Signals from the moon matching Martian resonance. "It's not just about ancient visitors," he said. "It's about a test, a legacy. We're being evaluated against Mars' failure." Elia felt a chill. And if the same deception is growing here? Lucien stared out the Martian viewport. Then the judgment has already started. And the object in orbit is the scales? Back on Earth, every 6 days since the seventh seed's silence, a subtle energy wave radiated across the planet. Seismic equipment picked it up. Migraines increased. People reported strange dreams again. Each wave was stronger than the last. There would be 7 in total. After the 7th, no one knew. Alea reviewed ancient scrolls again. The Codex, the Sumerian tablets, the pyramid texts. A hidden verse emerged. The seed that failed will rise once more, if those who follow repeat the score. But if their path is forged in truth, the cycle breaks, and stars bear fruit. Inside the Martian node, hidden in a sealed compartment, lay an object, not technological, but organic. A perfectly preserved seed, glowing faintly, pulsing with life. DNA beyond any Earth registry. A memory of what they once were, Lucian said, or a warning of what we could become. Alea touched it. A flash seared her mind. A vision of Earth, covered in towers of light. A humanity no longer divided, not worshipping gods, but living among them. We can still pass the test, she whispered, but we must stop the deception and the mimicry, and remember who we truly are, a lost Martian civilization, a betrayal that echoes into Earth's future, and the Watchers, now silent, may be waiting to see if we make the same fatal mistake. The 7th wave is almost here. The countdown is nearly complete. It began at 3:03 UTC. All over the planet, the resonance pulse hit. The 7th wave. Stronger than ever, but not destructive. It was a wave of memory. Seismographs flared, magnetometers overloaded. People around the globe fell into a deep trance. A billion minds stilled. And in the silence, they saw the Sumerian ziggurats beacons, not tombs. The Mayan temples' star charts etched by alien hands. The Dogon Sirius knowledge, not past, but returned. The Nazca Line's flight patterns, but not for birds. It was all a library, scattered across time. A test, layered in story, dream, and stone. And now it had been read. Alea stood beneath the oldest crypt in the Vatican, in a chamber few had ever seen. Lucian was beside her. They had returned from Mars with more than data. They had brought the heirloom seed. Here, beneath centuries of human faith and myth, she placed it into a carved bowl of obsidian, flanked by twin golden statues of angels not mentioned in any Bible. The seed pulsed. The walls shivered. A symbol appeared. 3 eyes in a circle, surrounding a blank space. What does it mean? She asked. Lucian answered slowly. They gave knowledge to others, the Watchers, the Seers. But they waited to see if we could rise to truth on our own, if we could remember, or only imitate. The seed cracked. Inside was not plant matter, but a tiny crystal shaped like a double helix. A genetic record, not of Martians, not even of the Watchers, but of humans from millions of years ago. The truth shattered every theory. This wasn't evolution rewritten. It was civilization rewritten. We are not just the result of alien intervention, Alea whispered. We were part of the original design. We are one of the Watcher species. Humanity wasn't just being tested. It was being welcomed back into memory. The Watchers weren't aliens looking down on us. They were our ancestors, or our future, or both. In Earth's orbit, the 7th seed, dark and silent for weeks, lit up once more. It rotated slowly, aligning perfectly with the Pyramid of Giza, the Martian node, and a location in deep space. It transmitted a final sequence of symbols, pulsing across all global frequencies. No encryption, no secret language. Just 3 symbols, a spiral, a tree, a hand reaching upward. And then it opened. A single light-formed being emerged. No face, no suit, only energy. Shaped like a human, it didn't descend. It simply hovered, waiting. At UN headquarters, A new council convened. Not political dot, but planetary. Scientists, mystics, linguists, shamans, philosophers, all gathered. And for once, not to debate what was happening, but to ask why us and why now. Alea presented the findings from Mars and Earth, the story of the ancient deception, the mimicry of gods, the corruption of original messages. We have copied powers we never understood, she said. We have feared what was meant to uplift us, and we have turned signals into silos. But we remember now. And then, at the stroke of midnight, the Watcher entity spoke, not in language, but into consciousness. Everyone heard it in their own mind, in their own language, and in their deepest voice. You are not being judged. You are being witnessed. You are not children. You are memory carriers. The mimicry has ended. The inheritance begins. One species, two paths. You have chosen. And then it was gone. The seed collapsed into light, dissolving into the atmosphere. No ships came. No cities fell. No gods walked among men. But the world changed anyway. Because now every human knew. Not the full truth, but enough. That the ancient myths were warnings and whispers. That the signs in the sky were echoes. And that we were never alone, because we were never meant to be. If we were the Watchers all along, maybe we fell once, forgot once, destroyed ourselves once. But not this time. This time we remembered. And that was enough to unlock the stars. Is it real or myth? We may never know for sure. But the evidence remains. Sites aligned with celestial math no civilization could calculate. DNA strands carrying non-terrestrial markers. Maps of Sirius B thousands of years before telescopes. Ancient tailies of flying disks, sky beings, and towers of fire. Coincidence? Or a test long in motion? You decide. Is the Watcher legacy real? Or the most extraordinary myth ever constructed? One thing is certain. Something out there watched us, and now we are watching back. Thank you for joining the journey through The Watchers, a hidden history of alien contact. Let the knowledge awaken something in you. If this story left you thinking or questioning, leave a comment below. Subscribe for more mind-bending stories where myth meets reality. Like if you believe humanity is ready,